All right, let's go ahead and get started. People can continue to trickle in. Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Mai. I'm the marketing manager for Confluent Medical Technologies. And I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us and learn a little bit more about what's going on with the Nitinol supply chain. We would love for you guys to ask questions. So there's the question box below. You can put your questions in at any time and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Confluent's Jonathan Howe, our Senior Director of Materials Infrastructure. Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany, and hello, medical device community out there. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Brittany, for putting on the webinar. Again, as Brittany mentioned, my name is Jonathan Howe. I'm the Senior Director of Materials Infrastructure. I've been with Confluent for 12 years. I've had a number of roles in our development, commercial business development, product development, and tech service spaces, working on prototypes. And then for the last year and a half, been working with our leadership team on really how can we secure our Nitinol supply chain. Prior to that, I worked for Johnson & Johnson for about 15 years in cardiovascular, sports med, and spinal implantable devices, working on a number of 510K and PMA programs. Really excited to be here, have the opportunity to share with you what's been going on and how we've been working to secure the Nitinol supply chain. And I really appreciate you all taking some time to be here on the webinar with us. As Brittany mentioned, if you have any questions on, please post them in the chat. Under the questions section, I think it says Q&A, and we'll take those as best we can at the end. So with that, let's jump into this. Okay, so for today's objectives, really, we'll give you just a brief overview of who we are at Confluent. Why did we make this investment? What were some of the supply chain gaps and where were we seeing those? Particularly, we'll focus on the melt source and the melt supply, but we'll talk about it in a broader context as well. We're going to talk about our partnership with ATI. We're really excited about this partnership and give you all an overview of kind of what is it that we've made from an investment standpoint to really secure that Nitinol supply chain. And then really we want to make sure that we come out of this with understanding, where are we with the ability to supply and access material. And we're really happy and excited about some of the things we've been doing there. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. All right, so Confluent. At Confluent, we're all about applying our material science expertise and know-how to medical device innovations. We specialize in design, development, and large-scale manufacturing, mainly of interventional catheter-based devices that go into cardiovascular implants, neurovascular implants, peripheral vascular implants. We're a global operation. We have over 8 facilities globally, 2,000 employees, 200 engineers, 350,000 square feet. So, this is our space, kind of a contract manufacturing of medical devices. Our key capabilities, we'll talk about these. We're going to really spend most of our time today on the first two, which is the Nitinol component and Nitinol hollows, tubes, and wires. And we'll talk a lot about those today. But we also have capabilities in balloon catheters, complex catheters, precision tubing, and implantable textiles. So that's our company all over the country and globally in Costa Rica and in India. What I want to start off on is just to give you guys a little bit about our vision, mission, and values. We like to ground all of the work that we do and bring it back to these. And there's a few things here I just want to highlight in the context of securing our supply chain. First is our vision. Our vision is about improving lives through using our innovative material science, engineering, and manufacturing know-how, as we talked about earlier. And for me, this is really impactful, as someone who's developed medical devices in the past, knowing that we're working on products that are going to help patients' lives really brings it home. Really excited to be a part of a team that is focused on that vision. In terms of our mission, the thing I want to highlight here is that we're about being committed to being you medical device industry's most trusted partner. And as we look at securing the supply chain, we really see that as a key tenet of that. We want to earn your trust by making sure that we have a stable and secure supply chain. So that's another key part of our mission here. And then if you look at our values, we have 6 core values here: customer focus, accountability, teamwork, integrity, innovation, and leadership. for today, I want to focus and drill down on just a few of them. So from a customer focus standpoint, we know it's critical to get that material to you so you all can design and develop your next generation medical devices for your applications. So making sure we can do that. Teamwork, it's been a long journey for us, and we're really proud of the work we've done in partnerships with our key suppliers, particularly ATI, which we'll talk about here. And then leadership, for us, it's been about, identifying these supply chain vulnerabilities and then taking the leadership position to invest in those and secure and make sure we have a stable supply chain. So improving those lives, being your most trusted partner, and then demonstrating our values to secure the supply chain here has been kind of our focus here and how it ties back into our mission. And I want to talk a little bit more about leadership here and dig into that and dive into that just a little bit more before we kind of dig into the kind of the rest of the backstory here. So let me frame this for you all. Why was securing the melt source so critical to securing the supply chain for nitinol? Many of you may know about ATI. They're one of the two major sources of nitinol melt. And what you might not know, though, is that ATI was really looking at potentially exiting this market. It was not a core part of their business. It was really a small product line for them. It was really hard to make, as you can see from the quote there from Leanne. And, trying to meet the material standards, the ASTMs, was just a very difficult thing for them. So this is we'll dive into the partnership later on, but this is really what, was kind of the context behind this. We wanted to make sure that we could invest in the material and such. And one thing I want to talk a little bit more about is, why was this not core to ATI? Well, if you look at ATI, great partners, but they're a $4 billion company. They melt over 2 billion pounds of material annually. And nitinol really, at around roughly 150,000 pounds a year annually is just a very, very small amount. And I don't know if we'd call it a rounding error, but basically a small amount. And so when you look at this and the investment it was going to take to make sure they had enough capacity for the long term to support the growth, it wasn't something that they were going to put the capital investment in a constrained capital market. So that's where we stepped in. That's where Confluent's investment was paramount to securing this supply chain. So that's what we're going to dig into, but I just want to make sure everyone kind of understands kind of what was going on with ATI, how it was important that we partnered together, and we'll dig into that a little bit more as we go. So let's talk about the supply chain and dig into this a little bit more, because I think it's important as we look at securing the supply chain, we understand what are the key elements here. And we'll keep this pretty high level, but if you're an OEM medical device developer or manufacturer out there, this might be what your nitinol supply chain looks like. You would start with needing to melt some material. You would have to gun drill that into a hollow so that you could draw it down into a tube, and then ultimately laser cut that into a finished component that would go into your medical device. And let's talk a little bit about kind of what each of these does in terms of outputs. So, because it'll be important to see that as we kind of go into this. So for nitinol melt, really the output here is a mill product. And what that looks like is typically a 1-inch, half-inch, or for our non-US customer base out there, a 25 millimeter to 12 millimeter diameter bar. That bar gets gun drilled at this next step. That comes in the form of a hollow. It's a 4-foot typically length bar that's got a very precise hole through there that allows the tube drawing processing companies to draw that down into all of our various tube sizes. And then from there, those tubes or hypotubes are laser cut into components. And so what I want to do here, though, is just for a second, as we frame this up, is drill a little bit further down into the nitinol melt manufacturing process here. We call it the nitinol melt, but really I think everyone should be appreciate that it's maybe a misnomer there, or there's a lot more steps within the nitinol melt process. Yes, we take nickel and titanium, we mix them together in this big large furnace that brings it into a big ingot, about 24-inch, depending on different sizes and such, 1,000 pounds, that several thousand-pound ingot. That then has to be forged and annealed and ground and rolled to get to that mill product size that the gun drillers can drill a hole in. And so when you think about that, it's not just melt, it is the whole manufacturing process to get to that mill product, that 1-inch bar, that 1/2-inch bar that's going to be able to be drilled, that then it's going to be able to be drawn and then be able to be laser cut into your various component that you're going to use. And so all of those steps, there's opportunities for those to have constraints. And that's really what part of what we did with our partnership with ATI was work through and identify each of those steps. Where are the constraints? What can we do to mitigate those? And I'm going to get into that a little bit more as we go along. But I'm really happy to report that, after a lot of hard work and partnership with them over the last 18 months or so, we're seeing some really encouraging improvements in our ability to get melt supply to our downstream processes, such as gun drilling, et cetera. So if you're a heart valve OEM out there, this is what you want to make sure you're having a good, secure, stable supply chain on, so that you don't have any interruptions within this whole process, so that those products that you're working hard to get for just helps improve patients' lives or save patients' lives is going to be able to get there to them. So this is what we think about, and this is certainly how Confluent looked at it. So if I go from there to our timeline of nitinol stabilization. So this has been a journey for us. I'll just briefly talk about the history of Confluent here. Really, our founding company was NDC back in '91. That's really where the company and our founder Tom Durg identified nitinol as a really interesting material that had some nice properties for medical applications. That grew over the next 20 years or so. We started to realize that, hey, we need to get scale. So we opened our first Costa Rica office and manufacturing location so that we could scale our business. And then from there, we really started to build elements to secure our nitinol supply chain. So as a lot of you probably know out there, there's standard grade nitinol and then there's high purity nitinol. ATI's version of high purity is called Eli. And in 2017, one of the first steps of Confluent's efforts to stabilize the market and secure that supply chain was to make a major investment in the furnaces and the capacity of that Eli material. From there, in 2019, we identified that gun drilling, or the tube, the hollows that we're making from that gun drilling, was a key element of our supply chain, making sure that our customers could have access to that and ongoing access to that. And so we ensured that we had a stable supply of that through our acquisitions with Tube Hollows. We've expanded in 2022 to open up our growing business and wire. And then today, in the last year, we have announced our partnership with ATI, kind of going back to that beginning in that nitinol melt portion being so critical, securing that part of it. So that was the journey here. I do, and I'm going to use maybe a pun here. I do want to drill down into the Tube Hollows one here just a little bit. One of the things that we've recently heard is through some customer communications and some conferences is some concern around capacity and ability to be able to get hollows and such. And I just want to point out that that's certainly been an important part of our focus. What you can see here, part of our journey, and just want to let the community know that we have plenty of tube hollow capacity. over 30,000 feet of open capacity. We're able to double that, and we can have lead times in the 8 to 12 week lead times for hollows. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But again, as we kind of think about securing that supply chain, today's mostly about melt and securing that, but it's that whole critical chain, that whole chain from melt, gun drilling, tubes, components, straight through. So just wanted to give that little plug there for the tube hollow portion too. Really important part of the business. All right, so let's get back to melt and focus on that. We're here. One of the things I want to just kind of frame the melt space is around the key players here. There are four key players in the Nitinol melt space. When you really look at it though, and there's really two that have a high performance Nitinol, material supply that will comply with ASTM F2063 that is used by most device development developers for their implantable grade material. It comes down to two. It's really Resonetics and ATI who source those materials or provide those materials. And that's what we want to look at today. We want to look at, where is this supply gap coming from and what are these challenges we're having? But wanted to frame that first. So what's going on? Let's go to the third topic, the third objective here, which is to kind of give you all a little bit more understanding of what's causing this or what has been the challenge around making sure we have Nitinol supply for all the customers out here. And it really comes down to three things. First one is demand for Nitinol has been increasing. Thanks to all the innovation and design developers out there that appreciate the unique design properties, the super elastic, the shape memory properties of Nitinol. We're seeing that market and that demand is doubling just about every 4 or 5 years. So, whether it's cardiovascular, neurovascular, peripheral vascular components, their use in applications growing tremendously. You can go out and look at the market growth in those spaces too. And what that's resulting in is, again, in a 4 to 5 year doubling of the demand. We've got that kind of as a, pushing against us to make sure we have supply. And then really supply, as we talked about and kind of framed up in that second slide there, just is not keeping up with demand. We've had, as we talked about, there's been an underinvestment in supply. Last year, ATI experienced essentially a 35% reduction in their supply from historic numbers. So that was also putting pressure on that. And those two really combined led to the third, which is really the root cause of the problem, which is there was a supply chain gap. We had a limited amount of melt supply. There was a supply reduction, demand was growing, and that led to this constraint and led to the need to step in here and find a solution that would allow us to get more material through the melt process into the gun drilling steps and be able to get it ultimately in the form of hollows, tubes, and wires and components to all of our customers. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did we solve that? The solution for us really came down to partnering with ATI. We talked a little bit about it before, but our mission, again, as we talked about, was to be your most trusted partner. That led to the strategy that we talked about, which was to secure the supply chain. And because there was this gap, we really felt we needed to partner and step up and make this investment. And I just want to say, it's been a pleasure over the last year plus here to work with ATI. ATI has tremendous values, very similar values that I shared with you in terms of kind of the Confluent mission, vision, and values. And we've had to do some hard work to get to a spot where we could find an investment where it would meet their needs and make it an attractive space for them and allow us to make sure we could secure material for our customers. So really happy that we were able to do that, and really appreciate our leadership team and leaders working with their team to partner here. So that was a key part of this, was the willingness to partner with us. And this was a picture of our announcing that at their facility a couple months ago, and we're really excited to kick this off, and I'm happy to talk to you a little bit more about what that all meant. Before I do that, let me just talk a little bit about the partnership here and our history and journey with ATI. We say 15 years, it probably should say 25 plus years, because I think if you go back to in the early 1990s there, NDC and ATI had relations there, and started to work really on the fundamentals, trying to understand how this unique material, how it could be applied to medical applications, and study the material. So that was really the early phases here, working on the fundamentals of medical grade nitinol. Again, I talked a little bit earlier in the slides. We then came to a partnership agreement on the Eli material so that we could expand our high purity capacity and make sure that the market had access to the premier high purity material in the market. In 2022 was really when we started this strategic partnership with them. We started to recognize the challenges that we talked about earlier, the doubling of the demand. We started to appreciate the supply constraints and the underinvestment, and that's where we started to engage in this strategic partnership. One of the key things we did there was formed a joint technical agreement with them. And with that agreement, we were able to bring their technical team and our technical team together, understand what challenges were happening within their supply chain, within their melt process, within their grinding process, within their labs, and where were those constraints, and then really start to tackle those and identify ways to break those constraints and get material flowing. So that's what we did with them starting in 2022. Been able to and been fortunate to have some time with both our teams together, and really happy to see how we've got to a spot now where it's really kind of one team, and that's been really nice to see. And then in the last year, as we just announced, or this year, excuse me, we just announced our long-term partnership. This is a multi-decade partnership, and ensuring that we can, hopefully not get in this position again, where we'll have a long-term access to the material, and capacity that will match and grow with the demand as we see it. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that and this partnership next. So what did we do? We invested $50 million in ATI's melt and conversion infrastructure, all those steps that we talked about. We added grinding capacity. We've certainly added a lot of melt capacity and infrastructure. At the labs, there was a lot of underinvestment there, so adding SEMs and equipment and such so that we could improve throughput with that. And at the end of the day, we're committed to do is to increase our capacity by 300%. And with that, the other thing that we're really excited to do, and we're really happy to be ATI's medical nitinol order fulfillment partner. Some of you might be saying, well, what the heck does that mean? The way I look at it is we're the commercial arm, we're the channel for ATI's and for the medical device community to access ATI's supply. And so we'll manage customer interactions, all the pricing, all the supply activities there, and we'll make sure that all orders are being fulfilled. So if you look at it kind of in the 4 pillars here, we're investing, we've become their partners. We're now able to, through this work and through all that hard work that joint technical team did, plus our supply chain teams did, we're really proud of the fact that we can now offer lead times of 14 weeks for tubing, 20 weeks for wire, and as we talked about, 8 to 12 weeks for hollows. We've increased our capacity. That's going to take some time. There's a lot of major capital equipment that's going in there, a lot of infrastructure that has to be put in. So that will grow and expand over the next 4 to 5 years. And then, as we go kind of back to that trusted partner perspective here, it really allows us to ensure that all of our customers have access to the supply of nitinol. So that's what this was about for us in this partnership with ATI. If I kind of break it down, just kind of fundamentals here, just for people to appreciate. It's what does long-term partnership mean? It's a 20-year agreement with them. It allows our teams, both technical and supply teams, to continue to innovate. I know we'll look at next generation materials as well. Allows us to focus on our core strengths. ATI has tremendous know-how on how to melt materials. We have the market access and understanding where the material is applied. So that partnership and being able to leverage each other's strengths was key. Obviously, with the demand and the capacity, being able to step up and make the capital investment here so that we could ensure that we'll have capacity for the next 3 years. 3 times the capacity, and be having it ready in 2027 to support and exceed the market demands is another key tenet here. We talked about order fulfillment. We're now their exclusive partners. And the last tenet is really improved profitability. We agree, as we talked about before, this was a small market for ATI, underinvested. Frankly, it was also not a very profitable business for them. And so we agreed to some pretty significant price increases so that we could make sure that the medical nitinol melt market for ATI was valuable and commensurate with their other portfolios. So that was a big part too that we worked on. So lots of work here. And again, it all comes down to being your most trusted partner. We want to have the most vertically integrated supply chain so that we can be confident that when you place your orders with us, we won't have supply interruptions. We have some work ahead of us to expand that so that we can keep pace with the market. But we're really excited with the fact that we now can offer these lead times of 10 weeks for nitinol hollows, 14 weeks for tubing, and 20 weeks for wire. So, oops, I don't know why it did that, but it went to the last slide. It does it on its own. Cool. I'll go back here. So thank you very much for your time. We'll open it up for questions and see if there's anything you all would like to have us address in more detail. Appreciate it. And thanks, Brittany.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan.